All right, it's time now for Great Day Books, a brand new book that true crime fans will not be able to put down. The disquieting death of Emma Gill dives into some tough topics, abortion and death, all related to a real case that happened in Bridgeport back in the late 1800s.
Now the story is being re-examined through a feminist lens, and here to tell us more is the author, Marcia Biederman, and Christina Volpe, curator and site administrator for the Barnes Museum. Ladies, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Excited to hear about this book. Is fascinating.
Yeah, so Marcia, you were a journalist, and 1898, this was a real crime that happened in Bridgeport. But just as we read about this story, there's a lot of it that might be topical and prevalent today as you talk about women and abortion and murder.
Absolutely. I stumbled upon this story when I was looking for something totally different. I happened to read an 1898 newspaper from San Francisco, which was headlined Bridgeport Murder Mystery. And I now live in New York, but I was brought up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, so I thought, is this my Bridgeport? And it was. And what had happened is some schoolboys playing on a bridge had looked down and seen some mysterious white packages on the mudflats below. And when they unwrapped them with some adult help, they found they were the gruesome remains of a young woman whose body had been dismembered. And at first people thought it was an axe murder, but the medical examiner quickly determined that this woman had had a recent abortion and her body had been dismembered to conceal the crime and dispose of the body. And I was fascinated because at the time I started writing this book, and it is true crime, it's nonfiction, the Roe versus Wade was the law of the land. But as I wrote it, I saw that Dobbs overturned Roe, and people wanted to recriminalize abortion. And this takes us back to a time when we see that limiting women's access to abortion just results in disaster. And it also doesn't stop women from getting abortions. Because what happened in 1898 is the Bridgeport police put out this story, and national news picked it up. Reporters were running into Bridgeport from New York, and they didn't know the identity of the woman. And 300 false tips came into the police station because everyone seemed to know everyone seemed to have a neighbor, a sister, a coworker who had been out of town for a while and very well could have gone for an abortion. Abortion was commonplace in 1898, even though it was a serious, serious crime.
Wow. So, but this story is also multifaceted. There's lots of layers to this too. It's involving a wealthy family, right? And how does the museum come into play here?
I'm so glad you asked that. So the Barnes Museum is a historic house museum located in downtown Southington in a very quaint area. But the history is all laid out for you right there, right? If we just look around. The Barnes family was one of the most prominent families in town and owned half of Southington at one point. The factory in which Emma Gill's family worked for was owned by the Barnes family, as well as the hotel where a certain telegram was sent, no spoilers. And so the Barnes is really at the center of this narrative, much like we are at the center of Southington's history still today, preserving, promoting, protecting our town's history. And this is a story that, while we talk about it every fall on our cemetery walking tour, when we found out about Marcia's book, there just didn't seem to be a better time to really bring it to life, especially as Marcia mentioned that, you know, we are still faced with the same issues today, that access to safe and healthy reproductive care is important now as it always has been.
And Emma Gill, so she was from Southington.
Yes.
And I've had the privilege of going to the Barnes Museum. It's great. It's even your kids, if you just get them to go, it's not boring. It's wonderful. It's like people think museum, they're like, oh, but no, it's so interactive and it's like a time warp. So really fascinating. If you're a true crime lover, you're going to love this. The reviews are saying it's kind of like you can't put it down.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you have a talk coming up this Wednesday, 7 o'clock. So if people want to come out, it's happening at the Kinsman Brewing in the Milldale section of Southington. How appropriate. So for more information, you can visit thebarnesmuseum.org. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And where can people pick up your book?
Anywhere books are sold.
Fantastic.
In independent bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc.
And we will have a couple copies available at the Barnes Museum as well.
Fantastic.
The Disquieting Death of Emma Gill. Thank you so much, ladies. And still ahead on Great Day Connecticut.